It's no secret that big tech companies pay out compensation figures that aren't comparable to any other industry. Engineers fresh out of college are able to earn nearly $200,000. With just a couple of years of experience, they can up that to $300,000 to $400,000. And by the time they're in their 30s, they're often earning $500,000 to $1 million. These jobs also often come with a bunch of perks like unlimited paid time off, the ability to work from anywhere in the world, free food, stock in the fastest growing companies, and so on. If you ask the average person, the only real downside of working at big tech is that there may be some level of moral compromise. I mean, at this point, it's really no secret how a lot of these companies make money. Even when it's not straight up data collection or privacy intrusion, it's often monopolization, anti-consumer policies, and abusing of power. But this moral dilemma and quote-unquote selling out is only the tip of the iceberg. This is actually often the least of your concerns when it comes to surviving and advancing at big tech. The reality is that despite their inviting-looking offices and seemingly employee-friendly policies, working at big tech is much more like being a professional athlete. If you follow sports, you'll often hear about contracts that are worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. But actually cashing in on the full value of these contracts is much easier said than done. Usually, half or more of these contracts are paid out based on performance. And unless you're able to keep up world-class performance for 5 to 10 years straight, you're only gonna walk away with a fraction of the top-line value. It's not that dissimilar at big tech. You get paid sky-high salaries, but you're also expected to perform at world-class levels. The moment that you don't, you're cut from the team, and this isn't speculation or anecdotal either. You can go on to Netflix's official company culture page and you'll see them say, quote, "We model ourselves on being a professional sports team, not a family." A dream team is about pushing yourself to be the best possible teammate, caring intensely about your team, and knowing that you may not be on the team forever. Dream teams are about performance, not seniority or tenure. It is up to the manager to ensure that every player is amazing at their position, plays effectively with others, and is given new opportunities to develop. That's how we keep winning the championship. So here's the truth about working at big tech. Out of all the big tech companies, the company with the most cutthroat environment is no doubt Netflix. And before we discuss the inner workings of Netflix, I wanted to clarify that I'm not trying to paint any of these companies in a bad light. Netflix, for example, is often the most generous of any company in the entire world when it comes to compensation. You know those multi-six-figure and seven-figure contracts that you hear about at big tech companies? Well, most of them are largely made up of stock comp and bonuses. At Netflix, however, the entire comp is purely cash. So it's no wonder why they expect so much, and I'm not criticizing that by any means. Rather, I want to show how working at these companies is often not as rosy as you might think, and that there is definitely a price to pay. With that being said, let's jump into the Netflix pressure cooker, starting with their policy of extreme openness and quote-unquote radical transparency. At most companies, compensation and performance is something that is discussed behind closed doors with just your boss and maybe your boss's boss. This is designed to minimize conflicts between employees regarding compensation and keep performance reviews private. At Netflix, however, it's the exact opposite. Everyone who is a director or above has access to the salaries of not just their direct reports, but everyone at the entire company. And as for performance reviews, these are even more accessible. Everyone who is an admin or up has access to the performance reviews of everyone at the entire organization. You're probably thinking that this would lead to a lot of awkward conversations. You know, the whole always knowing how your peers are performing and how much they're earning and that they know the same about you. But that's kind of the point. Netflix hopes that by making this information widely accessible, it encourages employees to constantly improve to survive. For example, if you know that you're the worst performing director while getting paid the most, you know that it's time to step the hell up unless you want to be cut next quarter. And believe me, Netflix does not think twice when it comes to firing people, and no one is safe, which brings us into the keeper test. Netflix encourages their management to constantly evaluate whether they would rehire and or fight for their direct reports. If the answer is ever no, it's time to fire them. And don't think that you can be the chill manager that doesn't do this either. If you're the chill manager, you'll come off as being soft and soon find yourself on the chopping block because, like I said, no one is safe, and this applies to even C-level executives. If you've been a Netflix subscriber for a while, you probably remember how garbage their recommendation algorithm was back in the mid-2010s. Some of you would argue that it's still garbage, but it has gotten a lot better, and that's thanks to the Keeper test. In 2017, after receiving a bunch of negative feedback about curation, Netflix decided to fire their chief product officer that was responsible for the curation algorithm, Neil Hunt. This was despite Neil being a personal friend of Reed Hastings and an OG employee who had been there since 1999. And that was a rather soft sacrifice. In mid-2021, Netflix fired 3 marketing executives at the same time for not conforming to the company's policy of radical transparency. For perspective, that was half of their entire executive marketing team. As you can see, Netflix does not hold back, but at least Netflix is completely transparent about that. They're cutthroat and they're proud about it. The same, however, cannot be said about their big tech peers, who often use much more underhanded tactics. The king of underhanded tactics is none other than Amazon, who very much has a culture of churn because that's how Boss Bezos likes it. In fact, Bezos isn't a big fan of tenured employees because he thinks that people simply get more comfortable and lazier with time, leading to a march to mediocrity. As such, Amazon has a bunch of policies to constantly churn through employees, starting with PIPs or performance improvement plans. Every year, Amazon has a policy of firing the bottom 10% of their workforce. This way, the quality of their workforce is always theoretically improving. In reality, this often just leads to a bunch of toxicity, office politics, and bad blood. In fact, it's common practice for Amazon managers to hire to fire, which is exactly what it sounds like. If you're an Amazon manager with a solid team, it's common to hire someone just so that you can fire them at the end of the year and preserve your core team. This also works perfectly with Amazon's compensation structure, which only pays out the majority of the stock comp in the 3rd and 4th years. So Amazon is able to get away with paying much less to employees who get churned out. But coming from Amazon, I don't think any of that is really surprising. What may be surprising, however, is the various tactics that Google and Facebook employ. Unlike Amazon or Netflix, Google and Facebook are much more sly in their approach, as they like to come off as the good guy. As such, they tend to employ good cop strategies. For example, the main reason that Google serves free breakfast, lunch, and dinner is not because they love feeding everyone great food, but to maximize on productivity. If great food is served on campus, it's less likely that people will go out for lunch. In fact, it's likely that a lot would simply work through lunch, or at least spend a lot less time at lunch. Also, the timing of free food is positioned to increase the length of the workday. For example, Google doesn't start serving dinner till 6:30 to 8 p.m. As such, if you come into work at 8 a.m. and want to partake in free dinner, you can easily find yourself at work from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's the same reason why Google offers, or at least used to offer, perks like free massages, haircuts, and ping pong tables. All of these perks are designed to keep you at the office for as long as possible and hopefully work for as long as possible. Even more employee-friendly policies like unlimited paid time off have even darker realities. When a company offers unlimited paid time off, employees feel a lot more guilty when taking days off. In fact, the average employee with unlimited paid time off only takes 11 days off per year, while the average employee with limited paid time off takes off 17 days, and that's just what you see at first glance. It turns out that 42% of employees with unlimited paid time off actually end up working even during their vacation days, and it gets even worse. When you have limited PTO and you don't use all of it, you have the ability to cash out this PTO when you leave, even if it's because you got fired. With unlimited PTO though, there is no acquired PTO, meaning that there's nothing to cash out when you leave even though you barely took any vacation. They hire the most talented and competitive people in the world, and they dangle the opportunity to have even more power, money, and influence in front of them. I think you can guess what sort of environment this would lead to, which brings us into the truth about big tech culture. As you can see, Netflix has the whole professional athlete model, Amazon has the churn model, and Google and Facebook have the good cop model. But if this is the reality of working at big tech, why do we never hear about this? Even more than that, why do we always hear about these companies being the best places in the world to work? Well, this has a lot to do with selection bias, and a great analogy for this is AP testing. If you're not familiar with AP exams, it's what a lot of American high school students take to earn college credit. The lowest score on the test is a 1 and the highest score is a 5. And one of the AP subjects with the lowest 5 rates is Physics 1, with only 8% of students getting a 5. 27% of students actually get the lowest score, a 1. This isn't all that surprising given that physics is an extremely tough subject. You know what is surprising though? One of the AP subjects with the highest 5 rates is Physics C E&M, a much harder and more advanced physics class. 31% of test takers get a 5 on Physics C E&M and only 12% get a 1. A subject with even better 5 rates is Calculus BC, where a whopping 42% of test takers get a 5 and only 6% get a 1. Does this mean that Physics C and Calculus BC are way easier than Physics 1? Of course not. It's just that only super smart people take these advanced classes in the first place, and they end up doing really well. It's the same thing with these big tech companies. It's not that these jobs are actually super chill and pay super well. They're actually hyper competitive and extremely keen on ensuring that you earn your salary. But only extremely talented, hyper-competitive individuals who thrive in this sort of environment are actually hired to begin with. As such, big tech is actually much more comparable to other high-pressure fields like investment banking and hedge funds, as opposed to normal companies who happen to hire software engineers. And this is the reality that is often lost when discussing careers at big tech. Like with any industry, the payout is proportional to the expectations. With something like finance, the high expectations are evident to everyone. You have to outperform the market, something that 90% of hedge fund managers fail to do. With tech, however, the high expectations aren't as evident from the outside. But believe me, there is no free lunch at big tech, both literally and figuratively, and that is the true price of working at big tech. At least these companies pay massive salaries to compensate for that. Oh, wait, never mind. They're making moves to dramatically decrease pay. Check out this video to learn more, but until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.